Good. They talked about it yesterday. Were you here?
I was here. I wrote about it.
Oh, you did?
Just, mentioning it to you.
Appreciate it. What's up, Brad?
But it is very retro.
All right. So as far as injuries, no real changes. Bilal and 18 were just more precautionary than anything, so nothing there. For where we're at right now, we just wanted to give them a little bit of some time and some rest there. Everybody else is the same, no changes from what we talked about yesterday, and then we'll get ready today for a third down day, nickel day.
How's our posture?
How's the what?
How's our posture? Have you heard this?
I did hear something about that, but yeah, I didn't know. I don't know the details of it. No, that's too funny. Y'all are crazy. That's it?
Your run defense has been really good this year. When teams can snuff out the run, how much harder does that make life as a play caller when you're on the other side?
It makes it a lot harder because it can force you to become one-dimensional. And then as a play caller too, it can if the runs aren't working, it can create you to not be as persistent with it. You get away from it, and sometimes you think it's something in the game, and then you find out the next day it was something else. So you have to really rely on your coaches to see what it is, but as far as us on defense, that's really great for us to be good against the run, really good against the run, and force teams into throwing the ball. That's an advantage for us.
How have you seen the run game and the importance of it in the NFL change over the years that you've been in the league?
Probably the biggest thing over time has been now that you're seeing more running backs by committee. Some of that is because of the offenses. Some of that is just because of the wear and tear. And some of that is also, it's part of the offensive deal is where you get teams that spread the ball around more, and maybe have more scat releases, less protection, and more scat releases. They become the fifth receiver instead of the sixth blocker. So, but that's kind of by team, by philosophy. But I think you've seen the trend there of a lot of these teams going with sometimes three running backs in a game.
The defensive group that took the field for you last Sunday was a group that had been here all summer without Khalil. What did you sense from that group's collective mindset, understanding that they were going to play without Khalil, but also the opportunity they had and then what they ended up doing?
Yeah, well, I wasn't real sure just because – you don't know until you're in the actual first play of the game to see how they're going to react to it. And so they just going out there, we knew for us that we had to stop the run against that team. You always got to stop the run, but that team there, if they get the run, the Jets, if they get the run game going, they're really good. So that was a big thing for us. And then just going throughout the game and just kind of watching as much as I could. With in particular with 52 being out, 94 with Floyd and Aaron Lynch, just keeping an eye on those guys and seeing and talking to the coaches and seeing how they're doing. How's how are they physically? How are they mentally? Are they doing good things? And then I can kind of formulate my own opinion when I'm watching the game. But no, I thought that they raised their level. They had to, and like you said, that was this is what it was going to be before the trade.
Last week you were talking about the importance of finishing and how finishing a game on Sunday starts in practice throughout the week. Is that a week-to-week thing you do, kind of like a mantra every week, or was that just particularly last week?
No, it's a week-to-week. Well, it's week-to-week. We try to keep topics, or I try to keep a topic each week to where I feel like we are as a team, and then who our opponent is. How does it fit? And it's nothing. I don't have it laid out for 16 weeks of okay, this one here is on my lesson plan. It's going to be this. No, this is just however I feel like we're going and what we need to be better at, what we did well, and then how it works with our opponent. And so, I brainstorm that a little bit on Monday, Tuesday, and then when we see them Wednesday, whatever organically I feel like it is, then that's what we talk about. Last week it was finishing. And it's been that way throughout most of the season. That's been a big word for us. And then complacency is the other one, is for us to make sure that we're not complacent in any way. And so when you win a game, the natural tendency is for people, human beings, is just to relax a little bit. And that's what I'm making sure I keep my finger on, is that we don't relax.
So what this week?
talk a lot about protecting Soldier Field at home games.
Yeah.
How does the mindset change when you go on the road? And as a play caller, are there things that are limiting in terms of like a loud crowd that you can't do?
Yeah, there'll be some things when you're on the road, depending on where you're going. It could be motions and shifts. It might be there's some things that you're at a disadvantage because you're on the road and it's loud. The communication is not as strong on the road when you play at particular stadiums. I know this in Buffalo, they fall into that category where it's loud, and so offensively we need to make sure that we're doing everything the right way that way, and so that's important on the road to do that.
Back to your themes. What's this week's?
This week's, just stay dialed in. That's it. It's real simple. Just continue to stay dialed in everything you do. And for me, you could look at that in a big picture. You could look at it in a small picture. For our guys, making sure that we have a great week of practice. I think that every rep that you get, see what happens now is in practice, we're slowly scaling back the reps in practice. That's normal for most teams. So now those reps that you get, they got to be quality reps. You cannot have any wasted reps. So make sure you're dialed in and understand that it's very important to get the most out of every single rep, physically on the field, mentally with your coaches.
Has Kyle Long avoided IR? Is that still something you're considering?
No, he's again, that's a process thing for us that we're going through, and we're continuing to talk through that with our trainers. And again, I don't know exactly where he's at in regards to the IR thing, but Ryan and I will get together with Dre and go through that, and hopefully that's not the case, but we're not 100% either way.
What more is there to consider in terms of that decision?
What more is there to consider?
In terms of new information you can find, or what goes into that process?
Well, just again, there's number one, his health and the timing of it. How long is it? How does that work with the league rules, with the IR, with any other options that we could have, and then how does it work with our roster? You know, with who we have and what spots and which way we want to go there. So, inevitably here, sometime we'll come up with exactly what we want to do, but we're working through that right now.
We all know that.
Yesterday about how it seems like he's establishing chemistry with a different guy every week. What stood out to you about that process for him? Where he's Allen 1 week, Trey did that to be Taylor.
So he's in a unique position because we have so many of those guys that he's trying to build that timing with, and he's done a good job considering that of trying to get better with Trey and with Allen and Taylor and Anthony, and the list goes on, and then you got your running backs and all the other tight ends. So it's not going to happen overnight, but throughout games, throughout training camp, throughout practices, he's slowly realizing what routes he likes with those guys, and those guys are realizing what routes they like with him that he throws, and so he's building that right now. And so what I've seen is somebody that as an offense, we can get better. It's only going to help our offense get better in certain areas, certain concepts. And I think right now those guys are doing a good job. They're working together after practice. In between practice, when the defense is up, they're over there stealing reps and getting a throw that they might have missed in practice. That's how they're growing.
Matt, we know that Khalil is a game changer, but do we overlook how good this defense still is without him?
Great point. Yeah, I think we certainly can. And I just go into the past couple years, and even last year with the players that are on this team right now, and then what we started building before Khalil was even here. I mean, we felt really good about our defense, and to me, it's a mentality. And now what you have to be careful about is when a player as good as Khalil joins you and makes you even better when he's out. How do you mentally handle that? Do you feel like, okay, well, we really did a lot of great things those first 4 games. He's out now. What's your mindset on that? Or do you say, you know what, let's go. Who cares? We got to step up even more and perform at an even higher level. And so I think that our coaches have done a good job with this past week of explaining that to them. That, hey, we're a good defense. Let's play that way. And it's all about more the mindset of it than it is anything else.
Bryce Callahan before you got here?
Before I got here, not a lot. I really didn't. And I've had discussions with Bryce, and I've told him that. But I know a lot about him now, and I think that he's one thing that Bryce does is he does it in practice all the time too. So he plays well in the field. He plays physical. He's not a big kid, but he's He's quick. He's very instinctive, and he's tough for how big he is. So I'm glad he's on our team, and I love the way he's playing right now.
What is the value of a good slot corner in today's league?
Got to have it. You have to have it. If you don't have a slot nickel, you're in trouble. Got to have it.
Matt, within a game, in that 3-hour window on Sundays, where do you see Coach Helfrich's greatest value to you?
So it's going to be within the drive as we're going. You know, there might be some pieces that he's throwing at me that he sees, but then probably even more specific, it would be in between drives is when we'll get on, we'll click on. We're all on it on the headset, but he'll go through with me and say, you know, you might want to tweak this formation to this or that. We may want to make this call versus this protection or for this protection. So in between series, he's very invaluable.
When you were in that role of being the offense coordinator without calling plays, what did you learn about the ebb and flow and what Andy needed from you?
So Coach Reed was one where there, you know, when he was calling plays, there was a lot of silence when the plays were going on within the series, and it was just, you know, he's kind of going and I'm that way as well. It's just nice to be able to have to think. Okay, you got to always be one play ahead, but then he was always asking questions to everybody in certain ways, whatever they're looking for in that game plan. He would ask questions and get the feedback, and then he'd take it and do whatever he wanted with it. That's how we are. I think you know, we do a good job between all of us up there, everybody, and Rags on the field, you know, of just talking through things.
When there's a situation like this where you have to change personnel on the offensive line and sub in somebody else, what does Harry do that kind of adds that kind of continuity you need there?
With him, with Harry, for the players' side, I think he brings instant credibility and that trust. They trust that, okay, I'm going in here now. I'm going behind one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, and now whatever he says, I do. And then Harry does the same thing. So whatever their strengths and weaknesses are, we'll try to fit that within our scheme. And so it's just, you know, Harry's a great teacher. He knows how to teach, and he knows how to really dive into the details with each player on how their technique is or what he sees with a defensive player specifically. And then you just trust each other. You go in there, and then whenever there's a mistake, he teaches the why part, tries to fix it so it doesn't happen again.
You mentioned fighting complacency. Is there something tangible you look for that maybe it's setting in a little bit, and how do you go about fighting it?
What was the first part?
Complacency, you mentioned fighting it.
Yeah. Well, complacency to me is in sports, it can be natural just because of time. You know, we're now in, week 8 of the season. You're kind of right in the middle of the season. And so the monotony of doing things is becoming monotonous. I mean, it's the same thing. It's Groundhog's Day every day. And so what I'm trying to do is make sure that we understand that really, and I told this to the team, is right now you're getting to that point where some teams start to go south and some teams start that climb going north before you get to whatever happens in week 12, 13, 14, 15, and at the end of the season. And so I want to make sure that there's no complacency and everyone is honed in, right? They're focused at their job, and that you don't slip in any manner. And it's you could say that in week 1, but as the season goes on, the complacency is normal. I think it's human nature, and I want to make sure that it's not normal, and I want to make sure that we're not complacent.
Matt, as far as you guys stopping the run, has Bilal Nichols been a factor in that? His numbers seem to have gone up the last 3 or 4 weeks.
He's certainly helped. I think Bilal's playing at a great level. You can see the energy that he plays with. He's playing strong. He's splitting the gaps. He's making plays. He made a few plays now this season on some key downs against some good football teams. And so we like that from being a rookie. He's stepping his game up. He's playing well.
Is the mentality going into this week's game, is it harder to kind of maintain that ferocity and fight that complacency going up against a team that has kind of started going south?
To tell you the truth, it's actually the opposite for us in a lot of ways. I mean, we have guys that have been in this league for a while, players and coaches, and I can't stress enough to them, and they've stressed to our players, and our players have been talking to each other of what we're getting ready to walk into here in Buffalo. This team is we don't care about records. That what I just mentioned about in regards to the way teams go, that happens. Some teams they go south, others go north. But we're only halfway through the season, so all these teams everybody can still make the playoffs, and so we're going into a hostile environment, and that's been our message to these guys is let's make sure you're ready for a battle. And Buffalo has always been very blue collar, and they will come and they will hit you hard on offense, defense, and special teams. And so our guys need to be prepared for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Vic, what were you most proud of the performance against the Jets from your guys?
One, that we won the game. That's always objective number one. I thought we did a good job of playing the run, better than we had been of recent, which is something that they had done really well coming into our game. That was probably the highlight.
What did they do well? What specifically did you guys do well to stop the run?
Well, we just played good. You know, played good technique, had the right mindset, needed to play the run, and we just played good.
When you guys can shut down the run the way you do.
What's that?
When you guys shut down the run the way you do, how does that change games?
Well, when you have a good feeling that you can, it frees you up mentally, meaning me, you know, as to what we can call.
How important has the depth on the defensive line and the ability to rotate players in and out been for stopping the run?
Well, that's always, you know, the more good players you have, always the better. And the guys that you have confidence playing and knowing that you can put them in there and not have much of a drop-off in the quality of the play, that's always good.
League kind of moves more toward passing. Has run defense, the importance of that, diminished at all in your eyes, or is it still the same as it was maybe 10, 15 years ago?
Well, it's still important because most offenses in this league, if they can bludgeon you with the run, they will. And, you know, now sometimes there's not as much patience as there used to be around the league with that. But, and then if you're not doing well against the run, now you start playing stuff that makes the passes even better for them. So the answer to your question is, you know, the value of the run has gone down a little bit just because of the way teams are playing, but if it's not there, it will bother you.
What about the evolution of defending runners as pass catchers?
I mean, backs?
Running backs, right?
Yeah, that's always, it's kind of gone through an evolution. You used that word. When I first came into the league, the third down backs were a specialist category, and there was a lot of them around the league. And I'm dating myself here a little bit, but guys like Ronnie Harmon, and there were other guys too, that they were really good receivers coming out of the backfield. And then when the advent of zone blitzing, the offenses got nervous about having those guys in there because they wanted a guy that could block and handle all the different exotic stuff that defenses were bringing. So that position, as you're alluding to, kind of disappeared for a little bit, but now it's coming back, and that does give the offense an extra weapon,
Sunday's defense wasn't necessarily fancy in the terms of like a lot of turnovers and sacks, but it was effective in regards of stopping the run and putting pressure on the quarterback. Akeem Hicks said that the bones of Vic Fangio's defense is effective over fancy. Do you have to ingrain that in their mind, or is that just something they pick up from being around you?
That's news to me. He's never said that. Like football's evolved, I've evolved myself. I can remember when I first went to San Francisco, Justin Smith had looked for scouting reports on me from people around the league, and he heard I was an exotic pressure blitz guy a lot, and he didn't like that, and he was nervous about that, and he came and told me about that. And at one time I was that way, and it's not that we can't be that way, because we have all the stuff to do that. I think you have to play the style that fits your team the best, and that's what we try and do.
You also like not being forced to do that? I mean, if you're
You always, if you want to pressure, it's when you want to, not because you have to. Because if you have to, they're feeling you have to also.
What was your assessment of the penalty called against Eddie?
That was a tough one because, if the guy had caught the ball, everything would have been great, but he dropped it, so now the impending collision looked like it was late. It's probably the right call, but I do not think in any shape or form that he should be fined for that. There's been too many guys that are getting fined for plays that are just in the normal flow of the game. They're not egregious or vicious or out of the scope of the way we want to play the game. I just don't think guys should be fined for those things. So we'll see. I don't know if he was fined for it.
I imagine the fine on Leonard earlier this year for that glancing blow on Osweiler.
Yeah. That is it a penalty by the strict definition of the rule? Possibly. Should it be a finable offense? No way. Okay, and I don't like to see the league try and take hard-earned money away from these players.
Vic, what has Bilal Nichols done in the last few weeks to earn more playing time?
He's just been playing good. He was playing part-time, and we roll those guys anyway. I'm not sure how many more snaps he had last week than he had been previously. And he was doing his job, doing it well, and when the plays presented themselves to him, he was Johnny on the spot.
Is there anything specifically he had to do to earn your trust to get him on the field?
Prove it, and he did that.
Vic, did you have a sense of how your team would play without Khalil Mack, given that you had had a lot of time with them last year and all that?
No, I mean I think that we would do fine. I mean, this thought process, our level of overall play, obviously when you add a player of his caliber into it, is going to be better. But there's still no reason for other guys to have negative, not play to the best of their abilities. So I just don't, get the point that everybody makes on that. Admitting that we'd be better off with him, I'm not saying that. But it shouldn't affect the other 10 guys on how they play.
When you're playing a quarterback like Nathan Peterman, who's had these struggles that have gained him a lot of notoriety, whether in social media or publicly, do you have a certain message for your defense when you're going up against a guy like that?
And we just got to defend their offense, regardless of who's playing quarterback for them. And, you know, I know that they like him there. You know, he did earn the starting job coming out of camp. And, you know, they pulled him for the rookie at some point. And I do know that they have a lot of confidence in him. And we got to be able to defend their offense. And he's a capable player.
What do you think of their receivers?
Good. You know, they got the big guy. They got Benjamin, Jones. Now, you know, we'll see how much they add prior to the mix. They got a good tight end in Clay. Got a good other tight end, number 80, the rookie. And they really got good backs. You know, somebody alluding to the running back being a receiver out of the backfield. McCoy's one of the best for that. So they got the threats offensively, and they've beaten some good teams. You know, they beat Minnesota, beat Tennessee, had Houston on the ropes. So, you know, this is the NFL.
How much do you have to kind of emphasize that message, though, especially with when you're going against an offense that has struggled? I think they have 2 touchdowns in the last 5 games. You know that your players are hearing all this stuff and their friends are telling them this stuff. How do you guard against that with your players?
You know, just the messages we give them in the meeting rooms. And they watch the tape. They know how close and how fragile success and not success is in this league. And I think they're smarter than that.
When Peterman has turned the ball over, what have defenses done to create those opportunities to pick off passes?
Well, every interception, as I heard some old quarterbacks used to say, has a story behind it. And all of his have a story behind it, whether it be, you know, pressure and throwing under duress, reading the covers the wrong way, you know, tipped ball, you know. They're all individually. I don't think there's a common theme to them.
So going up against an offense that has struggled, are any of you guys looking at this as an opportunity to build even more confidence as a defense?
This is an opportunity to get win number 5, period.
Vic, were you present last week when Khalil was told that he was going to be inactive for the first time in his career?
Not exactly, no.
Have you had to keep tabs on his sort of demeanor and temperament the last couple of weeks as he kind of gets used to this whole injury situation and obviously out of the norm for him?
We've talked a bit, but nothing, you know, not like it's, you know, sitting down and I got to psychoanalyze him or anything, you know. Just ask him how he's feeling, how he's doing. You know, to his credit, he tried to play with it. You know, some people would say we were wrong to play him after he got hurt early in Miami in that game, and then wrong to play him the next game. But, you know, there's another lens to look at that. A lot of people think players don't play through injuries, et cetera, and this guy's saying he can go. You don't know him as great as you know some other guys based on time, and I prefer to look at it through the lens of that this guy's trying to fight through and play, and he's not letting an injury take him out. You know, in hindsight, should we have taken him out earlier? Probably, but, you know, guy says he can go, and we got to see it.
What's your sense of where he's at mentally?
I think he's in a good spot.
Have you had to psychoanalyze the rest of the guys to make sure that they have that right mindset set to step up when he's not there and just keep going?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't say in regards to that. Just we got to have the right. Each individual player has to have the right mindset to play each and every game, and we get 11 guys on the field doing that, we'll be fine. And obviously, when he's available, whether it be this week, next week, or the following week, who knows, that will help us because he's a quality player, as we all know. But that should not affect the way we play as individuals otherwise.
Anything else? Anybody's got a second, Vic?
Good, I need this.
Can you just talk about James Daniels and what you've seen out of him last week getting his first career start and his mentality and things like that?
James is a pretty cool customer. He's a quiet guy, and that's something that I think he has both good and bad in that. You know, he has a quiet confidence about him. He's played a lot, and then very successful, and then comes into this role and, you know, hasn't been 100% successful, and he wants to be. And so we have to keep just you know, he's another guy that just needs a lot of experience, a lot of playing time. He's played a couple positions that that's something. All three of those interior guys, we have a lot of flexibility in there with Cush and James and Cody all having played center and guard. And then also with that, there's just a little bit of hesitancy in some of the things he's done, but very, very excited about his future. You know, competitive guy, strong, needs to continue to develop, but certainly had a couple hiccups in there against some veteran guys and some movement and stuff that he just hasn't really seen before.
Marcus, as we've continued to talk about Anthony Miller's refinement as a route runner, how have you seen his evolution in terms of the patience and slowing down a little bit as he runs his route?
It's a great way to put it. You know, I think he's a guy that he's a small step guy, and so he's gonna. Or some guys might take 3, he might take 7. You know, but take 5 or take 7, just depending on the situation. And he just needs to be detail oriented, and he's made steps. He made steps last week. He's made steps this week. Put in extra time with the quarterbacks. Put in extra time by himself, and guys have noticed that. Again, guy that just needs reps. He just needs to play in a system that the quarterback needs to know where he's going to be at all times. Because when he's in the right spot, we've seen it. You know what he can do with and without the ball. That's another thing that I really like about him is he's a competitive guy without the football. And when you do that, and the quarterback can trust you in the passing game, look out.
You had a sense, obviously, for what you were getting before the draft with him. What qualities in coaching him have you come to really respect?
Highly competitive. He's a highly competitive guy in every way. You know, he wants to be right, you know, almost to a fault sometimes early on of, hey, we're on the same team, I'm trying to help you, type of mode. I think Coach Furry's done a great job with him of you know, teaching him, hey, this has got to be your approach. This has to be your mentality, both on the field and off. But you put those things together with his natural talent. It's a nice little cocktail that we need to put together.
Mitch's ability to find chemistry with Anthony and then Taylor a couple weeks ago and other guys at various points in the season. What does that say about Mitch's time management and the work he puts in and the free windows he has with those guys?
Yeah, he's done a really nice job, and that's one of the things. And as practices get shorter and shorter, and there's less reps for all those guys, you have to do a lot of that in between plays when the defense is up during special teams. And again, that's getting with Anthony Miller when I have 2 minutes to run these 3 routes, or with Trey Burton to do this, that, and the other. He's done a great job of that, and being vocal and really. Taking the reins as a leader to get those guys to know, hey, I have to have you in, at this spot on this timing period. There's no option, and that's starting to show up. The negative of that is there's some of those guys. You need to see that happen in a game, to truly believe it. And if he's throwing to number 1. And I'm number 3, and I'm wide open, and I don't understand why I'm not getting the ball. All those kind of things that you have to reassure guys about. That's just a gradual deal.
Matt said against the Jets, the deep ball to Anthony, that Mitch could have thrown that a couple different ways.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of practicing that, like,
that's a great example.
How many reps do you have to go through of the several different ways to establish that?
It's a great example, of that ball can be thrown a lot of different ways based on where the free safety is, based upon the protection, how quickly the ball has to get out, his release on the defender, who the defender, all those things those are the part of the kind of the million decisions that people just think they just automatically happen at the quarterback position. And if the timing is a fraction off, or the wind blows a quarter of an, whatever it is, it's a long foul ball.
What stands out to you about the Bills defense?
A lot. Their front, how hard they play is the first thing that stands out. It doesn't matter the score. They had a couple tough ones earlier in the year, and they were playing their tails off when they were down big. They were playing their tails off when they were up big. You know, the edges, obviously, with 55 and probably now 57, they can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They're very exotic but sound in how they rush the passer and how they attack protections. It's very, very smart and very difficult. And then, you know, they mix up coverages just enough to give that quarterback, again, a little half second of hesitation, and then the pressure's there from the rush.
In terms of building a base and maybe a comfort, what does Mitch Gain see in playing the Cardinals, who could send different pressures, and the Jets, who could send different pressures, Miami too? What did he maybe gain that he could start taking into games like this as they get going?
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities in those teams' approaches. You know, and then it's just a matter of the chess pieces and you know, where this team may be better at, you know, defensive end, or the other team might be better at those other positions. That's where the differences are. And then certainly who's available and who's healthy week to week changes their approach a little bit. But they've been very good for a long time at all their stops defensively, and so it's a huge challenge and a unique challenge.
Sense for what allows Jordan Howard to be at his best and how he can get him to click throughout a game?
He's definitely kind of a rhythm ball carrier. You know, he's a guy that you know, sometimes people, it's hard to be patient, you know, to get that rhythm, get that third, fourth, fifth carry. I thought our offensive line and our tight ends did a much better job of fitting up things this last week. You know, he was untouched to deep into the third level of the defense. That's rare in the NFL to get to the third level of the defense untouched. And so that's where, you know, credit to Harry and the guys up front and the tight ends and getting there. But yeah, we just need to be more consistent of getting not only exactly what's blocked, but a little bit more.
Matt has spoken honestly about the run game, saying in the past that it's not where it needs to be. It can be better. Where is it in terms of where you expect it to be, and what can that element add to this offense if you can get that going the way you'd like?
Well, I mean, I think we have so much to improve in every area. You know, every facet of our offense we can improve upon in a big way. That's, again, glass half full, very exciting, glass half empty, very frustrating. But I think guys are starting to recognize things of why things happened or didn't, and really coming back the next day or the next, you know, from walkthrough to practice this afternoon, translating that to the practice field and then game day. Ultimately on game day, that's where it, you know, has to show up.
Some of the things that the defense seem to be doing to stymie that Patriots offense, especially in the first half, specifically, you know, in the red zone?
Yeah, they again, their red zone defense is phenomenal. They do a great job in a lot of ways of simulating pressure and then playing coverage, and that can weigh heavily on a quarterback, even somebody as experienced and as good as Tom Brady. And then they're very physical in their coverage, you know, at the line of scrimmage and maybe a little bit beyond. And so, you know, you saw a lot of contested balls last week on some of the quick games, some of the option route stuff, just a bunch of highly contested, very narrow window types of throws. And in the red zone, they get that much smaller. But they're you know, unfortunately, the New England game wasn't unique in the fact that they played great defense.
What was your throwback jersey choice last weekend and why?
Gale Sayers, and so probably, you know, don't really have to explain that one, but a legend, you know, on and off the field, probably a guy that everybody would have liked to have played a little bit longer. Great teammate, obviously, you know, bigger than football type of guy, not necessarily persona, but in how he impacted, you know, probably the world in a lot of ways.
As far as playing within the pocket and stepping up in the pocket, what did you see from Mitch? Specifically against the Jets?
Again, some good and some stuff that you know, we've already worked to improve upon, and those are things. That's not a, you know, a two-faced answer. It's reality of one person's step up and flush and convert a 3rd and 11 with your feet is another guy's, you know, slide to the right a foot, slide up a foot, and you know, throw the ball to Anthony Miller. We'll take both, you know, as long as as long as we've talked about this a lot, as long as his eyes and feet are in the right place at the right time, which they weren't always, and that's something we're working on. That's just as much our responsibility as it is his. That's job one, and then after that, get the job done. You know, so converting a third down like that, whether it was on the ground or in the air, we'll take it all day long.
Nice one.
Thank you.
This is more like it.
Well, you did have a miss. Cody, it looks like he just pushed it a bit.
Yeah.
Take us through it if you can. Yeah.
Just obviously missed it right. Pushed it a little bit. You know, fortunately, tough day to kick down there. But fortunately came back and made the rest of his kicks. And then, you know, just working on correcting those things. I mean, it's one of those deals. You don't want to miss them. He did. We got to have those points, and he understands that. Had a good day yesterday, and looking forward to having a good day today.
Overall, how do you feel like he responds to the kicks that he's missed?
Well, the good news is I think he responds well, because after he has missed, he's made all of them. You know, in the game. You know, he missed the one in Arizona, comes back and hits that, and you know the Miami game comes back and hits. So I think that you know, we got to eliminate those things, and it's going to get tougher and tougher to kick with the win. But he can do it, and I got a lot of confidence in him.
I know the fields here are set up the same way as Soldier Field, but just in terms of, I mean, your experiences there, and he hasn't had many experiences there. What advice do you give him? How much preparation do you want to, like, what do you do to get him comfortable?
I think, you know, each day's different. I think it'd be a little bit like if you were going to golf at the British Open. You know, some days it's going to be nice out there, and then other days you get out on the tee box and the wind's blowing all over the place, and you just have to play what the conditions are that day. That's where he's really strong at. He's mentally, he doesn't overthink things. You know, in his warm-up there, I mean, we started the line here, and then next kick, all of a sudden, a big gust right when he kicked the ball, and then it pushed it left or pushed it right. It's just, you have to trust your line, hit a good ball, make good contact, and then what Mother Nature does with it, you have to live with.
So along those lines, how much of those conversations pregame, I guess, when you communicate to Matt, range, wind, whatever, because that can impact his fourth down decisions, how much of that is actually determined on game day, right before the game, once you've seen the conditions?
I think a lot. You know, I mean, you have a general plan going in, but after you go through pregame, you know, you start talking about, hey, it's a right to left today. If it's a game winner, we might want to be on this hash going this way, on this hash going that way, those type of things. I feel good about him making it from this distance if we need to stretch him at the end of the half or the end of the game where you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit, but you have to try it. You talk all those things through, and that's a game day deal.
But beyond Tariq's decision his indecision at that moment, what have you liked about his decision making as a punt returner, and where do you when you look at the film later, do you feel like there's a lane there that's maybe developing? It
is. You know, that was it was tough last week because he didn't get a lot of returnable kicks, and then he had that, I think, a 21-yarder up the sideline, and he did a really nice job with that. I mean, we're always telling him we want him to be aggressive, but play with good judgment, and I think that's always the key, and I think he's been doing that. You know, we have to clean up that last mistake there at the end of the game because you don't want to, you know, risk something right there when you're 14 points up, and he knows that. But I mean, I'm glad he's back there. I mean, I got a lot of confidence in him that it could go at any time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.